Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Pirate University, day 2. We had a little... That's the kind of energy I was looking for. All right, we're live here in Elmsford, New York. We've had some little bit of water last night, a little bit of water. Down here in the main road is all flooded, so there's been some traffic issues getting people back and forth. But either way, that's why we have an online experience as well. Who knew we'd have so many resources and that hybrid could be so good for you? Either way, quick recap of yesterday. We had all sorts of really good things going on. We had people online. We had people in person. We had the guys, Omar and Jeff, helping us with Zoom for producers. Those guys did an excellent job. You know, we had a really full day, a lot of great activity. We talked to some clients about the client experience, and, you know, they gave us tremendous information. But the way we want to get into things today is we're going to start off with audio for hybrid events, because as everybody can see, there's a lot of coming and going with sound, and it can be a little bit, you know, to work on. So you got to work through the things and work on your workflow to make sure that it all makes sense so that you can then go back and troubleshoot. So we have an expert today. I'm not sure where he is. We have an expert today, and he's going to be guiding us through it. His name is Ed Willock. We've worked with Ed for a number of years. Ed, you can see almost every week on AV Tech Talks. He's involved with like 10 different organizations right now. And here's someone who has really perfected his craft, who has worked on a number of different things at the same time. So he actually is an expert in both in-person and virtual sound. So that's why we got him here today. So please, everybody, help me welcome Ed Willock.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. So Artie, if you don't mind, do me a favor. We can mute all of your inputs now, and then I'm going to take over here from my console.
Including your laptop?
Yep. You should be. To give you the best visual experience that we can. So just making sure you guys are good on the stream. You're getting my audio. We're all set. Perfect. Excellent. So.
I didn't hear you on the stream. Give it 10 seconds.
Yeah. Great. So hybrid events. What are they? What's the big deal? I mean, it's really just like a combination of an in-person event and a virtual event, right? And we already know how to do live events, so we're just going to do the same thing that we would do for a hybrid, right? Basically, it's just run and gun the way we've always done it. Maybe not. So right now, for the in-room audience, they can hear me through the PA. Hopefully out on the stream, you guys are hearing me. And that takes a little bit of work. So to show you what we're doing, and maybe I'll give you a little background on how I've kind of laid out the console and kind of how Artie here has set it up. We've kind of mirrored what we're doing. So we have some microphones. You can see I'm wearing a lavalier microphone, and that I'm sending to a bus, which if we get, great, perfect, thank you. So we're sending that to our RF mic. So all our wireless mics are coming in here, and then that's getting routed out to the left, right, on Artie's console, and it's feeding the PA. Great. So I've got some control. I can control my volume in the room using this fader, which the people in the room can confirm this is happening. Perfect. So how do we get the microphones to the streams? Well, that's a whole other thing. So you kind of have to treat your hybrid events like they are basically two events. So what we're going to do is, and I've kind of abandoned what I was going to do because with the flooding that's happening here in New York, we don't have as many of an in-house audience. So I've got my RF mic set up. Now, music playback. We have some stream music coming in. I've got some stream music. When I bring this fader up, you guys aren't hearing anything because I haven't assigned it anywhere. So what I do here and what I recommend is you start building other mixes. So just for the in-room, I've got my playback bus here. So I'm going to hit my sends on fader. I'm going to select my playback bus. And now you saw that the fader's moved. So I'll go back to my mics bus. And the only thing going there right now is this lavalier, this RF mic. If I had more presenters, I would send the rest of my mics. I got 5 of them here, and they would go right to this bus. Now my playback bus, you saw the faders moved. I'm going to bring my stream music up, and then when I come out of sends on fader, as I bring this fader up, we should start. Oh, and I have to bring the main fader up too. We hear our stream music. Great. So that worked. And because I'm still routing through Artie's console, that should be going to all the places that it was intended to go. Perfect. So, a stream. Actually, Artie, you are getting me on the stream? You are getting this? Because I'm not sending right now to the production bot, which I should be.
I'm not seeing music on the stream.
You didn't see music on the stream?
I don't think so. It's hard to tell because I'm also getting your microphone levels, so it's...
Gotcha. So, well, let me go back to, let me bring the music back up and I'll stop talking.
Yeah, I'm not getting it.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're routed right through the, like I said, we're busing one console to another, so I want to make sure that we're getting that. So we're definitely getting it in the room.
I heard it.
You hear, oh, you're hearing it on the stream? Perfect. Great. Awesome. So, things are working as we think they should. So great. Then the production bot. So we're feeding our cameras with, and the way we're doing it here today is we're taking audio out to the camera, and that's where we're embedding it to go to the stream. But it seems like we are getting it in there a different way. So Artie, do we have something else? Or Tim? Where you're seeing my audio come up on your RF bus there, Artie, right? And then we don't see audio going to your bot mix, right? We should be, but we don't, or well, we shouldn't be yet because I haven't sent it there yet. So if I send this, Tim, did that change your levels at all?
It's a little higher yet.
A little higher, okay. So that's interesting. I just want to make sure that we're all routed correct. Again, we had some flooding this morning, so some of our tech prep time got taken away. So we're just making sure, and this is why we planned. This is exactly the scenarios that we look at, is that, you know, we need the time, especially when we're starting to do virtualized events, that you know, with a live component, you know, all the stuff that we did in live events and all the stuff that we tested became, you know, now it's even more so. It's double the amount of work. So Artie, is that mic now going just to the bot mix?
Here's what we're going to do.
Yep.
I'm going to take these local channels out.
Yeah. Please. Yes, sorry. Yeah, all your local, that's why, now I understand, that all the local channels were still going in. We're head amp sharing, so we've connected these two consoles. That way we didn't have to repatch and double patch for this demo, so now I understand what's happening. So yeah, all your local inputs should be out. And Tim, can you just confirm that I'm still going to, that you're seeing me on your, what should be your B bus in vMix? That way, just want to make sure that everybody's hearing everything. Again, it's demoing a virtual. Perfect. Demoing a hybrid event while we're doing a hybrid event is it's like Inception, you know. It's
What about the Zoom return?
I think I saw that before, so I should be good there.
Right now, this it's not assigned anywhere. Does it need to go someplace where you want to assign it when you're ready?
It should be going to bus 5. My send to Zoom? Sorry.
The Zoom machine audio return does audio return.
That's coming in where I had that on channel 8. That's still there, right?
It's still there. It's not being sent anywhere right now.
Perfect.
Do you want to send it when you're ready?
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool.
Great. So, awesome. thank you guys for bearing with us. This is what we do with live events, and this is exactly why we're doing this demo. So you can see that there's tons of complexity. And again, we're busing a console into another console so that we don't have to totally start over, and to make this demo something that you guys could enjoy. So perfect, great. So I've got my mic coming in. I am sending some playback, so I'm going to kill that playback. That way it's not going out to the stream. And I had the bus down, so it's not. So now that I've thoroughly confused everyone, let's start at the top here, okay. So we've got our in-room figured out now, as you can tell. We've worked through, we've been hearing everything through the PA as we go. And now we'll focus a little bit more on the stream. So the stream, you guys should all be hearing me at this point, which is great. And the way I'm doing that is I'm sending a feed, as I showed you. I take this bus that is basically just feeding our stream. Only microphones are going to end up going to that stream. I'm sending right now just my microphone. If we end up with any Q&A, I brought the handheld in. I don't have any other presenters right now, so I don't need to worry about those other lavs, but I've got the mic set up, so now anything that comes here is going to go out to the stream. It's going to be a nice clean feed. It's going to the camera. It's going to get recorded. It's embedded. Perfect. So I've created a different mix. Like, why didn't I just take the main mix of what I'm doing on my faders and send it to the stream? And there's a number of reasons for that. We've got some EQ happening on this mic so that it doesn't feed back through the PA system. And we don't necessarily want that to be going out to the stream, because then it might not sound great. It's gonna, it'll be chopped, and we want a cleaner signal going out to the stream. The other reason is for the in-room, as I can bring my fader up and down for in this room, and that would affect the stream. As you guys just saw, I should be affecting the stream. So typically what I do and what Artie does, we both do it a little different. He uses subgroups. I usually use a post fader aux, but I set all of my in-room mics to a bus, and now for the room, I'm adjusting this level. You can see I'm adjusting this level, but if you're watching on the stream, this should not be affecting any of your volume that you just heard online. So that gave me some separation. Now I have a totally separate control for just my PA, and a totally separate control. If I dip this fader, it should be dipping it to you guys on the stream. So I've got two different handles where I can grab what I need to grab, and they're going to be completely independent. So I'm not locked into, oh no, I can't make that adjustment because it'll affect the room, or I can't make that adjustment because it'll affect the stream. So you're essentially, the audio person has now taken on two jobs. You're mixing for two completely different audiences. That's why I've got my earbud in my ear, so I can solo something and listen. I can listen to what I'm sending out to the stream. It's a little loud. Let me turn that volume down in my ear before I go deaf. And that lets me monitor what's going out. I also even have coming back in the stream feed, so I can monitor what's happening on the stream from Hopin, so I can listen to that too, without disrupting anything. So I have that control to be able to listen, and that's kind of important. So treat these as basically two separate events that you're mixing from the same workstation. So that's kind of one of the things that we look at. Now, I mentioned something about post fader. So there's a good reason why I mention that when I do these sorts of things, or subgroups works too. Has anyone ever heard of a hot mic moment, or seen when a politician's been caught, they didn't realize the mic was on, or heard the story of the CEO going to the bathroom and everybody heard them? So if you set up a pre-fader aux for this kind of thing, what could end up happening is you could have your fader down and it looks like, oh great, nothing's going out anywhere. But all of a sudden, that other layer, you don't see that it's sending still. And it all looks good to you until someone comes running in yelling at you like, why are we hearing this on the stream? Or all of a sudden through the PA at full volume you hear, something that is not supposed to be a public conversation. So thinking about how we do these routings, and pre and post fader, for those who maybe don't know, is exactly kind of what it sounds like. You can either send it before the fader, where the fader movement doesn't affect what's going out from that send, or you can send it post fader, where now as I move this fader, it's also affecting the level that's going out to the stream and other places. So these are just kind of tips and tricks and things to think about when you're planning your show. And as you can tell, planning out your show is extremely important. Taking the time to test when you can. I mean, you guys got to see somewhat of a troubleshooting session because, again, with the flooding here, we didn't get to do as much of the testing that we would have liked to. So that's kind of some of the, how do you handle the person that's in the room? How do you send them out to somewhere else? How does the people in the room hear them? How do the people on the stream hear them? What about when we're doing hybrid events? Because when you think hybrid, that means we have an online component plus this in-room component, right? So as many of us have done over the last 18 months, we get a lot of presenters from Zoom or Teams or Meets or any of these other platforms. So one of the things we also have to be prepared to do is bring in someone from the internet. So I've got my buddy Doug, who's on Zoom with us, and let me just stand by for a second. Right now, I'm gonna. Hey Doug, I can see you, so stand by. I'm not sure that you're hearing me yet because I haven't really sent anything to you. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna send my mic.
Oh, I got you now.
I'm gonna send this mic to Doug. Doug, can you hear me? If
I can hear you
just
now.
Nod.
I can, yes I can.
Perfect, great. So he's nodding so he can hear me, and now I'm gonna start bringing Doug up, but I gotta send Doug to the stream. So like I said, we have a bus that's just for Doug. So this bus that I'm sending for Doug, I'm going to bring up. I'm gonna put him just on the same bus as the microphones. And Doug, can you talk for me? Sorry, Doug, can you say a little something for me? Oh, Doug's not hearing me.
I think he's frozen.
Or is it? Oh, it does look like it's frozen. So, stand by. Doug, are you able to hear?
I can hear you now.
And this we did test. I did hear him before. Doug,
Hear you.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so Doug can hear me. So I've got him going to the stream, so the stream should hear him. Now let me bring him into the room. I'm going to send him also just to the mic's mix that I have already set up. Doug, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Great, look at how that works. So now
I got a Doug bus.
You know what? I didn't give you a Doug bus. I should have made a Doug bus, and it should have just been called Doug. Anyone who's ever worked on a show with me and Doug, or Joe Latursky, Doug has sort of learned better than to have any of us do his mic checks, because that's all you hear until he's done checking those podium mics is Doug. So Doug, thank you for joining, for taking some time out this morning. I appreciate you being here.
It's a pleasure being here.
Awesome. So you're able to hear me, I'm able to hear you, and the stream should be able to hear you as well. Let me confirm that. So I'm looking at my bus that's going to the stream, and I've got my Zoom return going there. So now I'm feeding both my in-room and I'm feeding my stream feed. So this is great because now Doug and I can have a two-way conversation. How was the weather by you, Doug? Did you get a lot of rain overnight?
It was a little rainy yesterday.
And is there any localized flooding like we're having here in Elmsford?
It's not so bad where I am at.
Okay. So obviously that conversation was real time enough that we were able to talk to each other because of the way we're routing. I'm also sending essentially direct from this console to the Zoom rather than back through the vMix. Two different ways to do it, but this gives me the shortest path, so there's the least latency, so our conversation can be a little more natural. It's more like just being on a Zoom call. If we were to take my audio, for example, and send it through vMix and then send it to Doug, and vice versa, take Doug's audio through vMix and then send it back to me, the latency between when I say something here in the room to when Doug hears it and then when Doug responds and comes back to me would be like painful to watch. It's like when you see on the news and you just see that anchor standing there and they're getting the feed in their IFB. oh, okay, here we are. That delay, it's just so awkward. It's a pause, and you don't want to do that in your meeting. So, so Doug can hear me through the PA, and we can hear on the stream. So one of the things I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to, and so the stream I'm going to leave you guys hearing my lav for because just for this demo. But in the room I'm gonna kill my lav. So now, boop, boop, boop. Sorry, I did it on the wrong bus there. So in the room I just killed my lav, but everybody here can still hear me, and I can see that I'm still sending to the stream. Now I set up a Talkback mic. If we want to cut the camera real quick, this will work better for this demo, I think. So I have a Talkback mic here that I'm only sending to Zoom. So I put that on my channel 16. So what I'm going to do now is if I turn this on and I talk to Doug, Doug can hear me. And you guys on the stream are still hearing me through my lav. But Doug, can you just nod your head if you can hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Perfect. So this now, as the director of the show, I can hand them this mic that has an on-off switch, and because Zoom does its own mix minus, which we'll talk about mix minuses in a second, the audience doesn't actually hear me talking to Doug. You guys are hearing me because my lav is on, but you're not hearing me through Zoom because it's not going to feed back into my system. But Doug can hear me just fine. So there's a yeah, and actually, sorry, I want to make sure Doug is not.
I think I'm getting it twice, yeah.
Yep, just checking. Thank you. That's exact. You wouldn't get that twice because the director wouldn't also be laved. But now if I kill, now you should only be getting it once. Is that right, Doug?
Now I just have Talkback, yeah.
Perfect. So I killed my lav over to the Zoom mix, and now it's just this handheld that I have in my hand. I know you guys are looking at the console, but I have just a regular wired handheld microphone. I'm talking to Doug. The stream, you're still hearing me through my lav. And now I can give Doug directions. So, you know, if we're coming into a segment, for example, I can say, as the director, all right, Doug, we're going to be coming to you live in about 10 seconds, so stand by, get yourself squared up. If you can straighten your head a little bit, that would be great. Perfect, sit up straight, wonderful. Make good eye contact with the camera, and we're coming to you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, we're live.
Thank you, Doug. Great to see you. So now at this point, I've killed the handheld microphone because as the director, I've given that cue. Now I don't need that, and I've come back to my lav so that now the in-room here can hear me, and me and Doug can have a great conversation. So these are the sorts of things that you want to plan for and build for. You know, your director, you need some sort of back channel communication with your remote presenters, because if you don't have that, you might be doing text chats, right? And now your presenter is looking at a screen and reading a screen. And you know, if you haven't gone through the trouble that me and Will went through here and moved the you know, the chat window of Zoom, you know, off to the side, then you get that little chat bubble that says, "Hey Doug, you're live." And if that shows up on screen, then it just kind of looks silly. So setting up your console in a way that lets you have these extra routes, extra buses, and now you've got direct paths to your talent. You know, sometimes in virtual events, what we do is we'll use something like Unity Intercom, and then we'll have a feed come off the console and feed Unity, and let them have it as an IFB right in their ear, you know, separate of Zoom or separate of Teams or Meets, whatever they're using as a video conferencing contributing platform. So. Yeah, there's all sorts of things we can do. So Doug, I want to thank you for your time, man. I appreciate you helping with the demo. I hope you're tuned in on Hopin also to enjoy.
Oh, I am.
Excellent. So you can enjoy the rest of the chat. I actually meant to get my iPad set up on Hopin so I could see the questions. I might ask if somebody wouldn't mind just getting me on the Wi-Fi here so I can see some of the questions that might be coming in or comments on the Hopin side. If somebody, I don't know if one of you guys would mind just getting me on your Wi-Fi, that would be great. I want to be able to try to take some comments and questions. Doug, do you have any questions about any of this? I know you do a lot of virtual events. I don't know how much hybrid you've been
I
doing.
see you working on your sends on fader layer a lot. Is that something you typically do?
That's a great question. So depending on the console, but yeah, typically on a digital console like the X32, I find that especially like the full size and you have your scribble strips where you can really know where you are, it's a very easy way to navigate the console. So Doug's pointing out that this button sends on fader right here. He knows the X32 very well. So this is a feature where those sends that we were talking about and how I'm actually assigning things, I can press this button and then, for example, right now I have my RF mics bus selected. Thank you so much. So what I can do is now any of the faders here will go to that send. So instead of, if anyone's worked on old analog consoles, and you can still do it that way on this console, it has rotary knobs right here that are your bus sends. But instead of having to do it with the rotaries, I can see, oh, look, I don't want to send that. This has nothing on it. So now I'm sending things that, this is my mix for this bus. And now when I go to my playback bus right now, I just have the stream going to it. I could be sending the house music, or what I wouldn't want to do is send back the Zoom, for example, because we would start getting, actually the Zoom wouldn't give us feedback, but it would be double assigned. I wouldn't want to send hop-in, for example. I have a hop-in channel, so if I brought the stream back in, now we would hear it delayed, because as we know, streaming adds a delay. So this shows me, oh, I just got this channel going here. To my stream mix, I've got right now just my mic, the handheld mic, and the Zoom mix. This might be more things, but this is all I needed for this particular demo. And then to Zoom, you can see, look, I selected Zoom. Now I'm just sending my shout mic that I had here and my lav. So by using sends on fader, it gives you access to these faders to decide what's going to go to your mix, not just your main mix. Now, where that gets confusing sometimes is you're dealing with the same physical fader, but it's controlling something completely different. And that's one of the challenges many people who have come from an analog world and haven't used digital consoles, it gets hard to wrap your head around, where you're dealing with layers and one knob has multi-functions. But that's how I use it. On this particular console too, you can do the reverse. So I have sends on fader, and I picked what bus that I'm controlling these faders with. But if I pick an input, like input 1, which is my microphone, this shows me, this shows me what buses I'm actually sending that to. So RF2, I only sent to the RF bus. So you can see that these faders change. So the Zoom is only going to the mics bus and the stream bus. The stream music is only going to my playback bus, which at Artie's console is feeding the stream. That's why you guys heard it. Again, we're routing, it's inception, all that stuff. So this is kind of a very useful way to visually see what's going where and quickly grab something when you have to build a new mix, or if the the record op says, hey, the guy on mic 2 is just a little too loud. Oh, okay, I'm going to grab my recording bus, or, well, I don't have anything on that, but the guy on mic 2, okay, let me just bring it down in just your mix. Great, now I'm back to what I'm doing on the show. So that's kind of a real easy way. But again, if you're used to rotary knobs, you can do the same thing, bus 1, bus 2, bus 3, bus 4, and then you can page through all your buses. So wasn't trying to do so much of an X32 class as much as an overall general, but you'll find sends on fader on most digital consoles, and it's a very efficient way to work. So thanks for that question, Doug. But is there anything that you think I'm leaving out? I know that you do a lot of both of these virtual and hybrid events. I'd love to hear if you have any thoughts.
Nothing I can think of. I mean, I think it's interesting once you get into using Unity and stuff like that, and you're sending everything back and forth using the board as an interface. Then it gets pretty complex pretty fast. I've done shows where I have 4 people in vMix, but then when you add in comms for that, and you have 7 people maybe on the back end doing it, it turns into 40 inputs and 40 outputs, and it's quite a lot to wrap your head around the first time you do it, because it's setting up all your mix minuses and trying to figure out your nomenclature for what's going where and what's feeding what, because it gets confusing when you add the comms in there. And so I think that's an interesting subject that is much more common for us now that we're doing hybrid events and you have to have comms with people on the far end. So I think that stuff is really interesting.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you mentioned mix minus, because that, I brought it up earlier and I said to get back to it. So essentially, when we build these extra mixes, they get referred to as mix minus. And as Joe alluded to, I host a show called AV Tech Talks, and we just had a conversation a couple weeks ago with some heavy-hitting audio people, and it's whether those should be called mix minuses, because in broadcast, mix minus is literally the full program mix minus the one input that you're sending back to a return person. So we're essentially kind of doing the same thing. We're setting up mixes minus, again, like I wouldn't send your Zoom audio back to yourself, because that would create that echo, that feedback loop. I wouldn't, that wouldn't, that's the things that we think about, and we don't want that to happen. So when I send audio to you, because I could send you the stream music, I could be sending you the full program. If we had video rolls, for example, you would need to hear those, and we'd be sending return video with those video rolls. So you want to hear pretty much everything except yourself coming back, because then, especially if you have open speakers, you're going to get that feedback loop where you're going to be hearing yourself. It's going to be distracting, because it's going to be delayed too with any of the latency that we encounter. So a mix minus typically would be full program minus the one thing, but we refer to these as mix minuses, even though we're just kind of really building like separate mixes. I wouldn't consider, I look at it more like if you're doing music and you're doing artist wedges, like monitors on stage. You're building mixes, and sometimes it is full program minus one thing, but a lot of times it's maybe just cherry-picked couple things that have to go somewhere, or for when we put program into comms, especially if we're virtual, sometimes they want to hear everything, but then they say, oh, you know what, can you give me the video rolls down 20 dB, because they really have to hear the dialogue and the conversations. The video rolls, once you've checked them and you know that they play and they're not, that the content's right and everything, they don't necessarily need to listen to a video roll, especially if it's like a 5-minute video. They're focusing on the next cues, or they might be having that director conversation back and forth. So you might have to build a totally separate mix for some of those people. Backstage, sometimes we have a shout box backstage where they get full program and they say, hey, turn this way down in my mix, it's just too loud, and you pull out the video rolls. So it's not always a mix minus, it's sometimes just a separate mix. So it depends how you want to look at it, but the kind of common thing we all call it is just mix minuses. It's like a Kleenex, right? We're referring to it, and you kind of start to just get to know when someone says that they're meaning, hey, send me this dedicated discrete mix separately. So yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up the mix minuses. Is there anything else, Doug, because I can let you go so you can go back to being an attendee. Again, I appreciate you jumping in.
No problem, Ed. Anytime.
Great. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So now I'm going to go and I'm going to take Zoom out of here. Thank you very much. And he can still hear me, but you can disconnect anytime, and we can probably switch back to not the split shot so that Doug can disappear and not have to hold that lovely pose. So awesome. Thanks, man. Great. So for now, actually, if we don't mind too, we can switch to just off the console. I'm going to be just talking for a couple minutes here. Perfect. And this is great. I got to tell you guys, here at Pirate University, Corporate Audiovisual Services has done a great job of setting this up. I can look straight into this camera, although we're looking at a PTZ at the moment, but I can look straight into this camera and be looking on the center shot, because they've set up a giant confidence monitor in the back. I can see what's going out to the stream. There's monitors on either side, so the in-house audience can see what I was doing. They could see that demo. Otherwise I was going to have to invite everybody to just look over my shoulder and and that doesn't look great. So this is a great setup. We were able to work out the tech stuff and connect my console, this console to Artie's console. This is their console, but the console I'm working on, and very, very happy as a presenter here. They've done a great job. Yesterday's content was great. I was here all day yesterday, checking out the in-person side and getting to see the virtual side. We're going to see remote presenters here in-house later. It's going to be a great time. So very, very happy to be here, and you guys have done very wonderful things. Tim is on vMix, and Artie's on audio, and sorry I didn't catch. I'm the jerk. I didn't catch your name switching the cameras. Dean is switching cameras. Thank you. So I'll just talk for a couple minutes to start thinking about when you're doing these virtual hybrid events. We went through a couple mixes. We did, for the in-room, we did those RF mics, the playback, and you could build that out. Oftentimes I'll do a lecterns bus, I'll do a labs bus, a handhelds bus for my wireless, and then I'll do my playback as separate. So there's all, you can go as in-depth as you want and what your resources allow. If you have a smaller console, you may not want to break it out that much, and you may want to simplify it and just put all of your RF on one, Usually I'll make sure I separate labs and RF because those are very different tonally. So you might have to do different EQ for those. I put the playback bus. And so we kind of went over that. Then what I'm sending just to the stream, and that could be very different things. For right now, what I'm sending is just like I said, the microphones. I do have, Artie has playback routed to the stream also, so I didn't have to make a separate playback bus to the stream, or I didn't have to put my playback in that because the way we're routed, it's already going there. But that could be a complicated thing, or it could be multiple channels. Again, if you're using something like vMix, the vMix operator might want a little bit of control because they're actually probably more closely monitoring the stream than you are if you're doing the in-room. You should always be monitoring the stream if you can. You should have a machine up that's actually showing you from the internet. You want to look at it back. It's going to be 20, 30 seconds, a minute delayed. It's going to be latent, but it'll give you that spot check that you can listen to. We talked about the Zoom back and forth, so I had to create a separate send to Zoom so that Doug could hear us, or your presenter can hear you. You get that extra mic in there, whatever you need. And then we were taking audio back to the console from Zoom so that we could hear our remote presenter. But there's other mixes you're going to have to probably worry about. We didn't talk about recording mixes. Now, right now, our vMix machine is doing a record of the whole thing, so that's great. But not everybody is using vMix on site, or they might be using vMix only for the stream side, and you may still need to record ISOs of the cameras or just a different record mix. So you might have recording feeds that you have to send. You may have camera feeds. So sometimes you're sending to a deck that's recording, but they're also recording on board to the cameras. So like I said, here today we are sending to the camera and the camera's embedding the audio, but that's not always how you do it. There's many ways to skin the cat. So you may have separate camera feeds, separate from record feeds, and those might be the same mix, and you might be able to build one mix and then distribute it out other places, or those might be discrete mixes if you want that control. Again, all up to you, your level, your comfort, the gear that you have, and everything we do is finding the right compromise to meet the need of the show, but also stay within the limitations of whatever gear we might have, or keeping some spare channels and mixes for backup for like that last minute. Oh, by the way, you want to make sure you're not totally hosed. Press feeds. So I know I've done a lot of high-end corporate events where the press was involved, and they want usually a totally different feed. Well, what they want is going to be different than what you're sending to your PA or to your stream. For the press, you're not going to put your walk-in music, or you're not going to put, the play-ons. You're just going to really send the talent mics, because they don't want any of that. If they're going to try to cut it up and send it to air, they don't want all of a sudden some Katy Perry song that introduces the CFO, as the thing that they now have to edit out. I mentioned IFBs before. IFBs are interruptible foldback. So when you watch the news, and they've got that little earpiece in, they're getting those directions from the director or whoever. So you might have to build separate mixes for those that are point-to-points or whatever. And then comms. We talked about Unity a little bit. So these are other things you might have to feed in. You might have to feed a program feed to comms. So it's a good idea to have all this in your mind and think about, what am I going to have to put together, and how am I going to allocate my resources, how am I going to set up my mix buses, and as I mentioned earlier, we'll get to that. You want to be as efficient with it as you can, and think about the limits of your gear, and if you only have 16 mix buses, you have to start making some decisions. Sometimes you might run out of buses if you only have this many channels. Okay, well, maybe I can't take everything into the console, or maybe I have to tell them to send me another sub mixer for if you have like a corporate event with a band, like have a separate mixer just for the band, and then feed that into your main console as the as a 2-track mix. So whatever you have to do, but you have to think about this, and planning ahead is kind of one of the important things that I want you to understand. Talking to remote presenters, we kind of went through that, where I set up that extra mic. It's a great idea to set up a green room, for your remote presenters. So get them on a half hour early, an hour early, whatever it is. Do a tech check with them, as I kind of demonstrated before. I said to Doug, sit up straight, look at the camera, you go over those things. You want to hear their audio. You may want to do a speed test, make sure that that they've got good internet. And if they don't, what are you going to do to get them to get them in, because you can't just not have their audio, and depending what platform you're using, that becomes easier, or not. But always have a plan. But having that green room where somebody else, not you, because you're focused on mixing the show, somebody else, you can say, here's your mic, you can talk direct to the talent, here's a headphone, you can hear them, and that's that. Because obviously, if we're trying to interface with the professional equipment, you're not just going to put like your iPod Airs into your ears and talk to them, because how am I going to get that as the audio person? I can't tap into your iPod Airs. So, and once you've tested, you don't want to switch your audio inputs. You want to test it and make sure it works and leave it alone. So that green room, I mentioned Zoom has a mix minus. So if you're specifically using Zoom, the reason that when I talked to Doug through the shout mic that it didn't come back into the PA was because when you send something into Zoom, you don't hear it back. If you think about being all those Zoom meetings, it's like, oh no, I don't hear myself when I'm talking in my own headset or through my own speakers. And they do that so that you don't get a feedback loop. So take advantage of that, and if you're capturing audio from Zoom, make sure you send audio back to Zoom from the same computer you're capturing it from, so that you get that natural mix minus that Zoom does, and you don't end up with some sort of feedback loop that you're not prepared for. And when you open that mic, and all of a sudden now there's that rolling echo, and that gets very embarrassing, and everyone's going to turn around and look at you, because it's definitely your fault. And as Doug mentioned, you can interface IP-based comms, something like Unity comms, or even Discord. People on low budget or no budgets are using the voice channels on Discord as a single channel comms solution. It's not the greatest, but in a pinch, it's better than nothing sometimes. Now, the one thing we haven't touched on and that we're not set up for today is online Q&A. So sometimes we're feeding a Zoom into a Zoom, or feeding whatever our vMix into a Zoom, and maybe there's a live audience watching at home, and the client says, hey, it'd be great if we could get some interaction and take some of those questions live. So you have to think about, how do I get that to happen and not have feedback and echo and all that stuff? And then you're really at the mercy. You have to understand that there's so many things we can control, and there's so many things we can't. And one of the things we can't control is what the people at home have on their end for equipment or bandwidth or any of that. So advise your clients, like, hey, this is a risky thing and this is something that's out of our control. But if you're tasked with doing it, how are you going to do it? You're going to have a separate computer that's just in as on the audience side or attendee side, and capture that audio so that you can bring it back into the console. Just kind of like what we did with the Zoom presenter, now you have to do it for the audience. And if you're already sending to Zoom with a computer, if you're sending from vMix into Zoom, however you're doing that, whether you're connecting them with an HDMI cable and a capture device, or you're doing NDI, make sure if you're going to take that audience audio, you're taking it from the same place that you're sending the audio to the audience Zoom, so that you get that mix minus and you don't end up recapturing your broadcast. So again, those mix minuses, use them to your advantage if your platform has them, and if not, then you have to build those mix minuses on your console or in your software. So some of the challenges that we face when we interface these in-room audio and the online audio, the number one is latency. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier, how I took as direct of a path from my microphone out to Zoom so that there wouldn't be that delay in the conversation. We can't get latency down to 0. It's not possible. And the more hops through the internet that you have to make, or through more equipment, the more latency you're going to add. So that's one of the things to keep in mind, is keeping your paths as short as they can be. The other thing is like lip sync. Like you don't want it to look like an old spaghetti western. So you want to make sure that you pay attention. Do I have to delay one or the other? And that's also another big part of why the way we bust this for today is because for the in-room, with all the latency of all the gear that everything's going through, there's an in-room camera that's capturing me, putting me on a screen, but my audio is a more direct path. So we have to delay the audio in the room a little bit, and to the streams and stuff, so to make sure that it matches up. So rather than reinvent the wheel, we went through the system that already so carefully, timed, because it would make no sense, and we'd be here all day just fixing that. The other thing is, as you can see, complexity. If you want this kind of flexibility, it's going to be complex. So plan these things out ahead of time. Echo, that's the thing whenever you're dealing with these online versus in person. Again, you can't control, does the person have an earbud in? Always recommend that they have some sort of earbud in their ear that they can be listening to rather than open speakers, because you're just asking for some sort of feedback loop. But as Doug said before, you saw, because I was talking to him on 2 microphones, he was getting a doubling, and I had to go back and change that. So it's very easy, even for someone who does this all the time, to let it slip your mind, like, oh, right, I got to mute that before I give that. I mean, that was a rare situation, but it's still, you don't want to be sending something to somebody twice, because it gets really disorienting. Whenever I actually produce my shows, if I feed myself back into my ears, I start to slur. You would think, I don't drink, and you would think that I was drunk, because it just, having the latency of hearing yourself back can definitely mess with your head. Choppy audio, we've all heard choppy audio on Zoom or other platforms. Again, you can only control so much. So on your production machines, make sure you're hardwired into the internet. Don't bring in a remote caller while you're Wi-Fi. Poor audio quality. You recommend to your presenters that they use an external mic if they have one. If you have enough lead time, convince your client that you want to send out a kit. You want to send out a little microphone, a little interface, and maybe even a camera, a better webcam, and do a day where you tech check that stuff once it gets to them, so that they're comfortable with it, and you can get better audio coming in, or at least have them have an earbud, or iPod Airs or something, better than just having a laptop with a microphone built into it, and you're in a concrete basement, and all of a sudden all it sounds like is you're in a stadium, just echo and from the natural sound of the room. So those are some of the things that we deal with. And always be thinking about, when you plan these out, who needs to hear what. So who needs to be heard is your number one thing. So obviously the presenter on stage, maybe you have someone off stage that's doing live VOG announcements, and who has to hear that person. So Obviously, the in-room has to hear those people. The online needs to hear those people. If you have remote presenters, they need to be heard. And who needs to hear them? So again, the in-room needs to hear them, the online needs to hear them. And sometimes if you're producing like a full in-Zoom kind of thing and you're staying in Zoom, you have to think about, okay, well, their audio is going to go direct to Zoom, so I don't have to send them back into Zoom. I only have to send one side back in. So all of these things, you want to plan them out and think about them ahead of time. The stage manager, that's the one that a lot of people forget about, and that's this microphone that I set up earlier. With remote presenters, I mean, in person it's easy. I just say, hey Jim, you're on in 5, 4, 3, okay, walk on out, great. And that's easy because I can see Jim, I can communicate with him. But the online person, you know, they're kind of flying blind unless you have that way of communicating with them. So you want to make sure you have that back channel for your stage manager so they can say, okay, great, you're, like I did with Doug, you're on in 5 seconds, you know, just sit up straight, look at the camera, and go. Because otherwise what ends up happening is if you just kick it from one to the other and there was no like standby warning, you know, you get that thing where it's like, okay, Ed, go. Or thanks, we're going to welcome Ed. And then I just sit there because I'm like, am I on? Am I not on? Am I on? I don't want to talk before I'm supposed to be on. And then they don't talk. So having that back channel is super important. Now, one of the things we're doing here is we're doing, even though we're using a digital console, we're still using a lot of analog inputs and outputs. For our Zoom machine, we had a Focusrite interface that we're using to get the audio from the analog audio from the console into that Zoom computer. And then coming back out, we were using like a PCDI out of the headphone jack to feed our system so that we could hear the Zoom. We're doing some networking stuff. Tim's got NDI going, so other than this demo we set up the Focusrite, but he's been using NDI to send the Zoom the return feed, the return audio. So that's networked video and audio that he's sending. And I think he was still sending networked video. But if you have things like Dante, or if you can take the USB out of a digital console and go direct into your vMix machine or into other machines, and then you can distribute on a network, that can really make your workflow a lot simpler. Well, sorry, I don't want to say a lot simpler. It gives you more options. As I said before, flexibility means complexity. So now you're dealing with network switches and you're dealing with having to know some IT, but being able to distribute that audio gives you a little more flexibility to move things around and do things on the fly without having to plug or unplug anything. So if you understand Dante or other networked audio solutions, absolutely use them. They're perfect for this sort of workflow. Cool. Yeah, so I think I covered pretty much the stuff that I had on my little outline. I didn't get a chance to get Hopin up, but I would love to see if there's any questions either here, or I can pull Hopin up really fast and see if we've got anything. I don't know if anybody has it accessible at the moment, but I'll get that going on my iPad so that I can see what's going on in the chat. Sorry, it'll take me just 2 seconds. Again, Pirate University has been a great resource. There's been a ton of excellent talks. Yesterday, I got to see my friends Omar Colomb and Jeff Widgren. There we go, there's login. Who were talked about Zoom for production. And being a Zoom producer. Great talk. So if you get a chance to look at the replay of that, if you didn't catch it live, then you want to make sure that you do so at your leisure.
The questions are up here now.
Oh, great.
We should put the chat on the screen. I don't know. Can you read that, or do you want one of us to read?
No, that's the. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, Jim, yes, we did do it on purpose. Good morning, Omar. Yeah, Jug. Yep, there was Doug. And
Willock, and here's one.
Will's got a good one. Can I discuss how you map out or use flow charts to lay out how you're going to handle signal flow for your productions? That is a great question. So flow charts, some of that can take some time. So a lot of times I still hand draw things, to be honest. I am like notorious. I have it sitting around here somewhere. I'm notorious for the yellow legal pad with a bunch of scribbled writing in my poorest handwriting. So that, I do take the time to draw things out, especially when they get very complex. So yeah, that's flowcharts absolutely can help make sense of things. Like I mentioned before, these consoles with all the layers that they have, it's very easy to get turned around if you're not doing it all the time. So if you find a workflow that you like and are kind of used to, and that you've planned for pretty much any kind of contingency like what we would normally run into, create a preset for a few different consoles and keep it on a USB stick so that you can walk in places and sorry, I didn't mean to look down. I know that I'm doing poor presenter etiquette right now. So yeah, the flowcharts absolutely help. Some sort of diagram, map it out, and that's part of your pre-production. Let's see, Doug, man, he's even asking questions. He presented, I put him on the spot, and he's even asked questions. Remote presenters, we often send them a mix minus along with video program over SDI. Can you talk about how you embed analog audio with your SDI feed to return to your presenters? That's a great question. So, and it's funny, I just had a conversation with people yesterday about how presenters always say that's a great question while they're thinking of the next thing they're gonna say, and I just did it. It's really funny. So, embedding SDI. So there's a few ways you can do that. If you're using a vision mixer like we are, we're using vMix on a production bot, which is part of the inventory here at Corporate Audiovisual Services. It's an all-in-one inclusive box that does that has vMix on it, has SDI inputs, has analog audio in and out, tons of USB interfaces. So it's a great tool. So you can bring your SDI in there, and then you can embed it. You can bring in the audio in there, and then you can even just feed it right back out as an embedded feed. Today, we're sending analog audio to a camera, and the camera is doing the embedding of the audio onto the SDI. That's being fed to a switcher that's cutting between these cameras that you see. We have the head-on shot, we've got the PTZs. So there's a couple ways you can do that. You can also get something like a UTAP, or there's a bunch of embedded audio devices that let you send analog audio to it, and then your video signal goes into it, SDI, and then there's an output that drops the audio, the analog audio, onto the audio channels of the SDI. So yeah, absolutely. And then obviously if you're going to go into Zoom, to return feed to your presenters. It's not always SDI. Sometimes you're typically going to have to convert, or you're going to have to use some sort of capture device, which could be HDMI, or you could have an SDI capture device. Sometimes it's easier just to take your audio and your video as separate feeds into your vision mixer, and then let your vision mixer create a separate mix and send it to the return. Again, we talked about latency, so that can be an issue. If you're trying to keep the latency as low as you can, you actually would be talking about de-embedding. Well, no, you just combine them. So like we did with an interface. So we were sending NDI. We weren't doing SDI. We were doing NDI video to Doug earlier today, and then putting audio as a separate stream through an audio interface. So that's typically the easier way to do it, is send them as two separates. And then if my lip sync would have been off going to Doug, I would have the ability, because I'm sending him a totally separate mix, I'm sending him nothing that has anything to do with the main mix out to the PA or the stream, I would be able to delay the audio to Doug to match the lip sync if I needed to. So that's why if you can create these separate paths and have this flexibility, you'll be in good shape. The last question I see there is Jeff Widgren. Today you have in-room PA. Why aren't we hearing that coming back through your microphone? So there's not any crazy magic. We're just using good blocking and positioning so that all the PA speakers are in front of me. I'm not running them too crazy hot in the room so that you're not getting a ton of the echo, but that can be a major problem. So sometimes you need to use tools, if your digital consoles have some sort of de-noise plug-in, or on the Yamaha consoles you have the primary source enhancer. Those are good tools that help. On the X32s, one of the things I tend to do on this console is I'll put the mics I need on my first 8 channels, so that if, say, I had a panel discussion and with a bunch of open mics that could pick up a lot of extra noise, the first 8 channels on this mixer has an auto mixer, so that helps. When this person isn't talking, it kind of ducks their mic down. So knowing your tools and using the technology to your advantage is kind of what you do for that, and try to keep the noise down. I try not to use gates, but I will use auto mixers all the time, and there's some pretty cool tricks. So with that, I think we got through the questions, and my time is pretty much up. I hope everybody picked something up today. You guys are doing great things here at Pirate University. Keep on watching. Watch the replays. It was a great sessions yesterday. Up next, we have Analog Way is going to be coming up, and I actually brought along a little prop, just because one of the last trainings I did right before the pandemic hit was I went to Analog Way down in Georgia, and I got my live premiere certification on the Aquilon. So I got this shirt, this nice polo that I haven't had a chance to wear anywhere because pandemic and all, but I thought I'd bring it, and looking forward to seeing what Seth has to say coming up next about their products, and looking forward to the rest of today. I want to thank Joe, Will, and Jim for having me on, and I hope you guys find me and AV Educate and AV Tech Talks every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, US. We go over all sorts of AV things, and you can reach out to me directly if you're here on Hopin. My LinkedIn is part of my profile. Feel free to reach out, and if you have any follow-up questions, or if you want to have a consultation about a specific show you're doing or something, I'm open and happy to help people learn and level up in this time. So thanks again to Pirate University. Have a great day.